Hi, this is Linda with Watery Wishes, and today I have a card for you using the Mandy's Flowers stamp set from a previous Simon Says Stamp card kit. Now, I've made somewhat of a template to cut out a square in a panel of cardstock. I'm using a ruler with a metal cutting edge on it so that I can use my box cutting knife to cut the paper, and I'm just using post-it tape to stop it from moving around on the surface as I cut. Now I'm going to use my really sharp tip scissors to get the corner bits, because it's just easier and makes it neater than just ripping it out. I originally intended to make a card that was folding into the open card, and what I did was I used the picket fence and I stamped it out twice, and I cut right along the lines of the cross beams on three sides, like so, the end pickets and the cross beam on one side, and then I left around about an 1/8 of an inch on one side, and it was just enough so that I could score it and run a strip of 1/8 inch score tape, and then I added some lines to where in between the pickets were. Now I'm using hickory smoke to ink up another A2 panel of Nina White cardstock. It's 80 pound, and I'm doing this, it definitely doesn't have to be perfect. I'm actually going to make this sort of look like a bit of a wooden shack that's sort of weathered and dirty, just a little bit. And I'm using the hickory smoke to lay down a basic bit of colour, and now I'm going to use the C1, C3 and C5 Copic markers, and I'm going to do like a wood texture on this panel, and this is something I learnt from watching Kelly Latavola's videos. And it doesn't have to be perfect. This panel is going to be cut up into 1/2 inch strips and used as cladding for the side of the house. So none of it has to be perfect. It just has to sort of resemble painted wood that's been painted white and is a bit dirty. And as you can see, I'm not really worried about it. I'm just going for it. And it's not perfect. It's not even anywhere near as good as what Kelly Latavola does, but once it's all cut up, it works quite well. And then I'll come in with the darker colour. And once I've come in with the darker colour, I go over the whole thing with the C1. And if you look at the stamp of the picket fence in the stamp set and the shutters that I created out of it, you can sort of, that are up the top of the screen, you can sort of get an idea of how I did that. I've got this thing on altering stamps at the moment. I'm all for getting the most out of a stamp set that you pay money for. And these kits are so great. They're actually the only kit I subscribe to, because every month they bring out something that I like, and because I'm new to card making, I need to build up my stash. So they're great. And here I am just going over the whole thing with the C1. Not that you can see that it does much, but it does. It does do a little bit. It's just with my current camera, it's hard to tell. So here we are cutting it into 1/2 inch strips. Yes, there's going to be a little bit left over, which I use that just up the top of the window a little bit. And this is probably one of the most time-consuming bits of the whole card. And I know this video goes for like 20 minutes, but it is a little bit of a craft project, this one. So that can't be helped. So I'm just making sure that the panel is big enough for those shutters to go in. It's not quite wide enough, so I'm just taking a little bit off one of the sides. And it's still not quite wide enough, but it's good enough that they shut almost perfectly. I think there's like a couple of millimeters in it. So I'm not too worried about that, because I'd rather have them overlapping a little bit than have a gap there. So now I'm just laying these pieces down so that they overlap a little bit, like the one on top overlaps the one underneath it just a tiny bit. And I'm making sure that I put one edge up against the other edge of the card panel, because I'm going to need nearly every little single bit of this texture that I've created. So now I'm going over the shutters that I created with that picket fence with the same Copic markers that I used for the texture for the wood. So it's the C1, the C3 and the C5. That way they'll blend in better with the siding that I'm putting on the card. There are some little bits that I didn't get on this card because my batteries ran out and my camera stopped recording. And I'll have to explain them at the end. But the most time-consuming bit is gluing these little bits of cladding down, and I just skipped that part because you didn't need to see the whole thing. So now what I'm doing is I've snipped tiny little bits in the top and the bottom in that score line, just so it sort of slots in there really well. As you can see, I'm doing it on this one too, just the tiniest little nicks, taking off that backing paper of that 1/8 of an inch score tape, popping the door into place using those nicks, and then making sure that it adheres. And then, because all that Copic colouring showing through the back, I decided to pull the hickory smoke back out and just go over the back of them so that they don't look so splotchy. Now, I didn't show all the Copic colouring because my camera was way too far out for you to see any of it. So I'm only showing a little bit, but everything was basically done the same. I lay in the shadows with the darkest colour, and then I moved to, I think, the mid-tone, and then I put in the lightest colour. And I do the same with all the flowers and all the leaves, although the leaves are in the green stuff. Some of it's very fiddly and you don't need 3 markers to blend, just only for the bigger bits. And the colours that I used for the flowers and the leaves are up on the screen. They're V20, V22, V25, G40, G43, G46, Y13, Y15 and Y17. So now I've used that same template to draw a square on my card base so that I know where to stamp, and I'm using a stamp set from another Simon Says Stamp card kit stamp set, and at the moment I cannot remember the name of this one, but the link to the set will be in the description and on my blog. And I forgot to use my powder tool before stamping and in putting the embossing powder on this, so I'm just using my cutter bees to get into those tight little places to clean up the stray little bits of embossing powder before I heat set it. And the sentiment reads, "You are simply the best ever." Now I'm using some Squeeze Lemonade and the Tim Holtz brush. Oh, that's right, I erase it before I get too far into the ink blending, because once you've got the ink down on top of it, it won't come up. And I'm using this brush, which is actually the first time I've used it, because I was like, what colour am I going to use it with? I've only got one brush. I don't want to use my only one brush and have all the other colours be envious that they don't have a brush, which is sort of silly, but it's the way I think. So I pulled it out because it's really good. It's much better than the other tonic brushes, and it's really soft, and I didn't want to have to come in from the sides of the card. And it works really good for when you have to ink in place and you can't get to where you're going from the sides of the card, so it works really well. So now I've just cut a piece of packaging, stamp packaging, and it would have been better if I had more solid acetate to do this with. I mean, this works in a pinch, but it's not the best outcome, but it is usable. So if you need to make a shaker card in a pinch and you don't have any acetate, you can use old stamp packaging. Now I've just put some score-like tape down. And I'm just burnishing that into the tape. Now I'm just putting some foam, just doubled up 3M foam tape all around where that sentiment was stamped. And you can just vaguely see the pencil line in real life, so that's how I know that I haven't gone too far in with that foam tape. And I'm going to use some of the sequins that came with, I think it came with the Mandy's Flowers kit. And I'm also going to use some clear and white sequins from a Hero Arts kit that I just bought 1 month because it had a load of sentiments in it, and I felt that I needed more sentiments in my stash. And they have a lot of single words that you can mix and match, which comes in really handy when you're just building a stash. But the Hero Arts kits sell out and then they're not available anymore. Sort of like the Simon Says Stamp exclusives for Stamptember, which is currently going on now. Once they're sold out, they're never to be seen again. So here I am picking out some white and some clear, and I don't want too many sequins in here because I want to be able to see the sentiment. So I want the sequins to be able to go sort of down the bottom and settle so that they can be seen, or so that they can still be seen but the sentiment can be seen also. And there we are. It says, "You are simply the best ever." Now, I also use a sentiment from a Hero Arts kit that says, "Hi friend," and I shade that in the Hickory Smoke as well, and then I go over the letters with one of the V Copic markers that I used on the purple flower. One of the bits of backing paper got stuck, it ripped off and got stuck. So I stamped that sentiment and I sort of fussy cut it out, and I put it just under the shutters. And the card felt slightly unbalanced because I'm going to put the flowers down the bottom and then the sentiment just sort of fits in the bottom where the shutters are. Like it's like it's coming out of the windowsill. And it looks sort of a bit bottom heavy, if that makes sense. So what I did is I got one of my dies that's like a wiggly line border, and I cut a piece of Nina cardstock with it, and then I shaded it with the purple markers to look like a corrugated awning that was just purple, the same color as the flower. And you won't see me do it, but you will see the finished pictures, and it goes sort of dark light, dark light, dark light, so that it gets that corrugated look. And that's what finished off the card. So it was just a piece of cardstock that I Copic coloured. So here are the finished pictures with the flowers down the bottom and that hi friend sentiment, and the strip of cardstock that I coloured with those violet markers, and there it is with the window open, showing this sentiment inside. So I hope you liked the video. If you did, hit that like button. I'd love it if you commented or subscribed. I'll see you guys in the next one. And don't forget, have fun crafting your imagination. Bye.